Yeah. So at the end of the day, software development shops in India are essentially automating or outsourcing the business process, which is of software building, software testing, so on and so forth. So it's not a net new idea, right? The only trick over here is this time we are having bots in the middle of it. So let me pause over here. Any questions? I mean, we kind of lost a little bit of a rhythm, and I apologize for the technical issues. As such, any questions? No questions?
Yeah, looks like Pradhan Madam is asking for something here.
Yeah, one sec. I have my entire video screen is messed up. Give me 1 sec. Yeah, go ahead.
Prashant, I want to just ask, you talk about this front office, middle office and back office.
Yeah.
So automation part, where exactly in all three we are using, or which is the prominent area like where we can use this concept of automation?
Yeah, I mean, I think it applies everywhere. Every business has a front and a middle and a back. Generally, the front office deals with customers, middle office deals with their orders or requests, back office deals with fulfilling their orders and so on and so forth, right? At the end of the day, what we automate through robotics is applicable almost everywhere, or where we introduce AI is pretty broad reaching. What the companies typically will do is, right, I mean, they will figure out what are the core areas where they want to apply robotics, and we'll get into that in a bit. So I think good question. Let me cover a little bit of intuition into front office, middle office, and back office, and then we'll cover where the automation generally takes place as such, or as we see it. Cool. Any other question? Okay. So, I mean, as I said, right, I mean, if you really look at an example of a bank, right, then a bank has a front office. Typically, we go to a branch office and say, I want a loan, I want a new account. So anything to do with that kind of activities which involves the first interactions with the customers is generally a front office. The middle office deals with like capturing their requests. Like now the middle office could be a branch or a main office. So if you went to the branch office and said, I want loan, most likely somebody talked with you, gave you an application form. Then as that application form was collected, paperwork was evaluated, eligibility of the loan, limit approvals, all those things are initiated in the middle office as an example. And then typically the back office will involve other processes such as, fulfillment of that loan process, which might mean issuing the check or setting up the monthly payments, billing, etc., so on and so forth. So this is a bank example. So what I wanted to do is to have a little bit of interaction both with JSPM as well as SN. I mean, this is, if you look at the hospital, right? I mean, can somebody take a lead and explain me? Let's say we'll pick up JSPM. Help me understand a little bit of, hey, what are probably the front office business processes that you can think of? Anybody?
From students, explain the process for the hospitalization. They are asking.
Like when you go to a hospital, right? Take Ruby Hospital as such, right? Typically, like, hey, what would be a good example of a front office process?
Receptionist. It's for JSP.
Yeah. I mean, what happens at the reception? I mean, what are they doing?
We can book an appointment.
Patient details.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. And what would be a typical? Go ahead.
Can we go ahead, Prashant?
Yeah. And what would be like a typical middle office process?
So front side we can have websites like e-commerce website, and in the middle they are taking orders, like they verify the customer.
Hospital.
Okay, hospital.
It's okay. Example is hospital.
Okay.
Prasad sir,
Yeah.
I think that it's a diagnostic services to the patients.
Yeah.
From the
Yeah. 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 So I mean, like typical middle office might involve. We could make up things over here, right? It's either after or you're kind of done with your procedure or your test, the entire process of figuring out the test and issuing you the results. That could be a good middle office process. And then the entire aspects of billing, discharge, insurance related claims, all of that could be back office or middle office, depending upon how a particular hospital is set up. But as I said, right, independent of front, middle, or back, there are always things to be optimized. There are always decisions to be made. There is lots of rekeying of data from one screen to another screen or paperwork which is done today manually, which can be automated. And I think that was the reason for me bringing this particular example into the mix. Anybody else? Do you guys have intuition into what a business process is? I mean, it's an important idea for a lot of work we will end up doing. Everybody clear about what a business process is, intuition-wise?
Yes.
Any other questions anywhere on the phone or?
Can you give us another example regarding the middle office, how it functions, as in like what do they really do?
So I think middle office is an organizing construct. It is generally typically found in financial services. I have not seen a lot of people using middle office, back office outside of the financial services. And think of front office as nothing but a set of functions or departments, and the departments that deal with the actual processes. So in financial services, like typically the middle office would involve loans, approvals, limits, credit card application limits, probably taking in the transaction request and determining eligibility, routing it to the fulfillment depending on if you're an investment bank or other kind of operation as such. And typically, including some things such as customer verification could also be a middle office. A KYC typically might be initiated from the front office, but fulfilled through middle office, as an example. Make sense?
Yes.
Any other question, discussion, anything, Vasant, Shrikant, you want to add?
Yeah, just one thing, right? Look at your own example in your college, right? Something that you are living right? In your college, can you think about any process that can break into these three categories where you have witnessed a front office kind of environment, a middle office, or a back office? Can you relate to anything that you have gone through?
And that's a very good example, right? I mean, you guys tell us how is JSPM or a college like AISSM or JSPM structured? What is your front office? What is your middle office? What is your back office?
So the front office mainly deals with the admission process and all that stuff. Then the middle office will be like the teaching process, the lab sessions and all. And the third, that is the last one, back end will deal with the fee structure of the college and all that stuff.
I mean, I think you went way far, right? Even if you just look at the admission process starts with you starting your application and ends with you getting the admission, right? So if you limit that process to just that, you can still see that you have an admission clerk with whom you're starting your admission process, but then probably your admission application goes to your vice principal or principal or somebody who is looking at your application, reviewing the application. Probably he's approving your application. And once that is done, finally what happens is there is some fees that you need to pay, right? Any other formalities that you might have to do right after your application is approved, those activities will happen in the back office. Getting it? So those kind of process, I mean, that's just one simple example, but there could be many such kind of things that could be happening even in a college environment, right? So even in an office or a business environment, there could be multiple such processes that could be happening in these three different phases. They're all connected and they all happen at different times. Make sense?
Yes.
Yes.
Even if you make a call to a call center, right? You're invoking a business process which starts at a call center with your call, right? It could be just an inquiry process, or it could be starting a new transaction, starting a new order, or something like that, right? Even if you go to a fairly local mom and shop chemist down your neighborhood, and the neighborhood has the neighborhood chemist has a front office, middle office, on back office. Even though it's so small operation as such, the front office is the guy who takes the prescription. There is somebody who will read that prescription, either supporting from him from the back or is supporting with the billing. So they are also structured, right? I mean, like, hey, could you give the subscription and not wait in the queue, and then say, hey, I'll come back after 5 minutes, and then that request takes time, and he has a 1-800 number that you can call. I mean, we don't know, right? I mean, it's small enough, yet it can have a front, middle, and back, and depending upon the business and depending upon what you are trying to do, you may consider one versus another as your core business. Not all of the processes as such. Many of the processes typically end up becoming essential processes in order to survive a business, but they may not be the core of the business as such. Cool. Any other questions before I jump to the next slide?
One question.
Yeah.
What I feel is that middle office decision-making process is more in middle office.
I don't think there is no such thing as a decision making, right? Every process, whether it's front, middle, or back, there is decision making, there is judgment, right? But what they are doing is if you take any process and break it into small steps, there is decision making happening, but they may be doing decisions localized to the process in itself. But if you say, hey, look, you take any normal branch office, they don't do a loans decision over there. They probably don't even do a new account opening over there. So they may take the applications form, most likely after the branch hours close down, those applications forms then go to the middle office or back office. And then there is some decision making which is happening at a bulk, right, overall as such. So there's no such thing as decision making happening only in one particular process. There are decision nodes almost in every process as such. One process ends, something else picks up.
Hey Prashan, I just pinged you an image.
Give me one sec.
See if that maybe helps.
On what did you ping me?
On the Zoom group chat.
Okay. Give me one sec. Which is, yeah, this one, right?
Yeah, you just click on the chat.
This one? This one, right?
Yeah. So basically, at a very high level, this might make sense. So you might have heard of people who manage other people's money. So those that could be front office, like portfolio managers or analysts type of people telling you how you can manage the people. But then behind them, actually there is a middle office, which is they do all kinds of risk management analysis and more stuff like that. And then behind all of them is a back office that does government compliance, reporting, all that stuff. So that's very high level breakdown of uh, how things are divided. So front office is usually dealing with their customers to some extent directly, whereas the middle office is supporting the people uh, who are talking to the customers. And then the back office is basically taking care of all the, you almost can call it like a overhead, but it's required stuff. So like compliance, regulation, all that stuff, reporting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and again, I don't expect a lot of, so as I said, right, every business, whether it's an insurance company or a financial services company, a retail company, will organize its business in a different process. Let's say you take a real estate company, right? Real estate management company, they will be organized differently. The whole idea is, at the end of the day, processes are not scattered randomly. They are organized typically into departments. Departments are typically organized further into a front, middle, and back. That's the main idea to be to connect here at the moment. Yeah, makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we quickly finish up a few more slides and then we will break up for the day. So now generally businesses are smart, especially ones that are making money and surviving. I mean, they're always to grow, reduce cost and risk. I mean, we kind of covered a little bit of topic associated with this. I think where does the BPO and its variant comes into the picture, right? A business or a company may want to, make the front office digital, enhance the customer experience, and survive the business by staying extremely focused on the customers. Because at the end of the day, they don't have the customers, they don't have a revenue coming in, right? So typically front office business processes tend to have higher focus in and higher connotation of being core. And generally front office processes stay away from a lot of disruptions or outsourcing as such, because even if they outsource it, and if you outsource a core process to somebody else, then basically you're almost outsourcing the running and the special sauce of your business, and sooner or later you may be kind of vertically integrated and your supplier may take over you. So typically a company may, as I said, may want to optimize the front office, make it digital. Or they may not want to deal with middle office and back office, as they don't think that it's not a core to their business again, right? Just giving probably a little bit of a relevant or irrelevant example, right? I don't think that either of your colleges are interested in running the catering service. I don't think so, right? It's an essential thing for them to provide ability to have some sort of a cafeteria as a service, but they're not hiring actively and trying to get into the business of running a cafeteria. Most likely they outsource it. They provide the space probably, but they outsource it to a local contractor and they say, hey, they're out of it, right? So it's the same idea at the end of the day, right? Middle office, back office, they may not want to deal if it's not core. And that's where the BPO firm comes into picture. And the highest end business process outsourcing is nothing but a business practice in which an organization hires another outfit to perform tasks or processes that the hiring organization requires for its own business to successfully operate. So they need it, it's necessary evil, but that they don't think it's a core idea to run it. So I have some bunch of reading material over here, right? What a BPO is, or people can go through this material at their leisure. But again, KPO, which is knowledge process outsourcing, LPO, which is a legal process outsourcing, is same thing as it's a specialized KPO, I would say. Similarly, research process outsourcing, again, a specialized kind of knowledge process outsourcing. The other way to think about all of this KPO, BPO, and even IT outsourcing is nothing but IT or information technology enabled services. I mean, if there is no information technology enablement, look what we are doing here, right? We are utilizing an internet backbone to communicate with you guys sitting 10,000 miles away, separated by 2 separate time zones. And we are having a learning experience which would not be otherwise possible if there was no information technology enablement over here. So typically ITES is another way to take all of this and club together under ITES as a phenomenon. So I think it's about an hour since we started. So what I want to do is I'll send this link after the videos are also created and sent to you. I'll send the link to this particular thing. What we're going to do is we're going to do associate work or watch additional videos and install the needed software. So I think the goal here is, so when we meet, either we have to figure out if we are going to meet tomorrow morning or tomorrow night, or give you guys another 1 or 2 days. But what I want you to do is go through this self-study, familiarize with robotic process automation. I mean, you wouldn't understand robotic process automation until and unless you had an orientation of business processes and front office, middle office. So familiarize with RPA, get UiPath Studio installed, and get familiar with the UI. So I'm expecting that as part of the associate work that we will do between today and we'll declare whether we are meeting again tomorrow night as a just checkpoint call. We'll figure that out. What I want to do is I want to say, hey, there's a video over here. You're going to watch that video. It's 30 minutes, 33 minutes. It will go into and once you go to the website, you will see tons of videos from this particular source. I would not advise you to spend more than 30 minutes on these videos, but understand watch this video just to get an orientation of what RPA is and how a RPA bot is built. Then come quickly to the UiPath Academy. So if you go to UiPath Academy, I mean, at least I am expecting people to complete basic concepts, data manipulation stuff, and some orientation of user interface automation. So if they're able to watch these videos and kind of get the UiPath Studio installed, and that would be good enough. So let me pause and ask if people are clear about the associate work part.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I will pass on this link to this presentation right away after we hang up. And then we will decide, Shrikant, what to do about tomorrow night or tomorrow morning India time. Do we regroup after sending the group and have like a 30-minute Q&A session? People have watched the videos and they may have. So tomorrow there is whatever I covered in 2 days. Two sessions I covered in one, unfortunately or fortunately, even with the logistics. So we can push the videos that we covered over here, as well as this material, and we can have a half an hour to 45-minute Q&A tomorrow. Yeah, Shrikant, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, I think that should do. I mean, we can rely on the message from Pradhan Madam. If they're okay with meeting tomorrow, we can do that. If not, we can stop. But yeah, just meeting for a few minutes to address any questions. I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, is it clear, GCM side too? I mean, I covered material work 2 sessions in 1 session. And so now I'm wanting the students have more time now to watch the videos and install the needed software. So what I can do is we can have a 15 to 30-minute session tomorrow, this same time, and check how they are doing. and if there are any questions that they have.
Okay, sir.
Okay,
Awesome.
cool. So if there are no questions, then we'll call it a day or call it a night. Cool. All right. Thank you.
Have a good
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Bye.
Hello.